What does it really take to be a sniper in the US Army? It's one of the most dangerous and unforgiving roles in modern warfare. Sure, you need to be an incredible marksman, but the real challenge is surviving a world where one wrong move could be your last. Buried deep behind enemy lines, completely exposed and hunted, a sniper must blend into the landscape while enemy eyes and high-powered optics scan for the smallest mistake. Endurance is everything. You'll crawl through mud, bugs crawling over you, all while you wait for the perfect shot. Fail and you could be caught, tortured, or worse, but that's just part of the job. So how do these soldiers prepare for such a brutal and high-stakes role? What kind of training turns them into the deadliest weapons on the battlefield? Let's dive in. But before we explore what it takes to become a master sniper for the most powerful army in the world, let's first uncover the surprising origins of this deadly profession. Where did the skills that define today's snipers come from? The answers might not be what you expect. In the past, sharpshooters would often be experienced outdoorsmen, like hunters. The very word sniper derives from this talent, stemming from the British colonial experience in India in the late 18th century. There, good shots would try to bag snipes, small birds that easily blend in with their environment, have excellent situational awareness, and have erratic flight behavior that makes them difficult to target. Hunters that could consistently shoot snipes were given the honorific title of sniper. Because of their sharp senses, snipe hunting occurred at long distances, and shooters had to approach the task with stealth, patience, and cunning, not to mention accuracy. Those remain required attributes for a sniper, and the United States Army no longer outsources its search for snipers. It now has its own sniper course to train them in the craft. The school is based at Fort Moore in Georgia, previously Fort Benning, and was formally established in 1987. But assuming you even get accepted into Fort Moore as a sniper candidate, what do you need to do to pass this course? What's the completion rate? First, how do you get in to begin with? To qualify, you must be between the rank of Private First Class and Staff Sergeant. You must also come from a certain military occupation. The acceptable occupations are Rifle Infantryman 11B, Cavalry Scout 19D, or membership in the US Army's Special Forces, the 18 series. You have to have a minimum score of 100 in the General Technical section of the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery ASVAB test. The ASVAB covers things like basic reading, language, and math skills, though some vocations might require mechanical knowledge. You must also be seen as a good soldier, good enough to get a signed letter of recommendation from your commanding officer, and usually this means you have a good evaluation on marksmanship and land navigation. You must also pass a physical exam. Snipers also have to be stronger than the average soldier. Average soldiers might be tasked with carrying 35-pound rucksacks for extended durations, but snipers might need to carry up to 110 pounds on their backs for long hours, all while navigating rough terrain. Sometimes, a lot of the time, as candidates will soon discover, they'll need to crawl. The physical doesn't end with strength. Sniper candidates will unsurprisingly need to pass a vision test. You must show that your vision can at least be corrected to 20/20 and that you can distinguish between red and green colors. You also need to pass a psychological evaluation. Finally, you need to demonstrate your expertise with the M4, the standard rifle in the US military, although in March 2024, the XM7, which is designated to replace the M4, started seeing limited service. Future sniper candidates will need to learn about that weapon. If you manage to meet all of those requirements, congratulations! You now need to go through a grueling training program. The US Army's sniper course might only be 5 weeks long, but it will wind up feeling a lot longer. In fact, the course has been condensed. It used to be 7 weeks, with a total instruction time of 517 hours, 73 hours per week. Now it's even shorter, at just 29 days. That should tell you a lot about your work schedule. This is not a 9-to-5 gig. To make matters more challenging, there's no going to HR to complain about abusive co-workers or bosses. Sniper candidates should expect harassment as part of the job. Consider it an initiation rite. You will be one of around 300 soldiers every year who go through the same thing. The fact that you're even one of those 300 is an honor in itself, and you're expected to live up to that distinction from the beginning. Abusive language from your instructors will be the least of your difficulties when trying to pass through the trials at Fort Moore. Upon arrival, the physical and psychological evaluations begin immediately. At orientation, sniper candidates are tasked with doing push-ups and sit-ups. After that, they'll need to complete a 2-mile run in less than 16.3 minutes. Attrition will begin right here. Sometimes all of the candidates will make it through, but usually some of them will be dropped from the course right there and then. If you can make it through this physical exam, you will then be taken to the firing range. You might have gotten a letter of recommendation based on your marksmanship before, but the sniper course instructors haven't seen you in action yet, and they want to see you with their own eyes. This challenge is designed to be uncomfortable. If you make it to this point, you will have already been physically and mentally challenged. Now you'll be in the hot sun with sweat pouring into your eyes, and you'll still need to demonstrate good technique with your standard service rifle. If you cannot pass this evaluation, the instructors will drop you from the course. If you can, congratulations, you've passed day 1. It's understandable why some students fail this early. Shooting a target from long range in bad weather with superiors barking in your ear might be difficult. It's now best to remember that shooting is only 20% of the course. It's now day 2. Don't forget to bring your complete ghillie suit. As a student, you'll begin this day by constructing your ghillie suit. You'll start with a net laid out on a table. You will then apply burlap straps, leaves, twigs, and other vegetation onto this net. Each ghillie suit is unique, but some might be much better than others. Yours better be a good one, because day 2 is going to be much harder for you than the first day. One of the requirements in this course is that you'll have to demonstrate that your ghillie suit can survive harsh terrain and tough weather conditions. There's also room for a little vanity. You'll be applying cosmetics in front of a mirror as part of this day's activities. But this isn't makeup designed to make you look nice. It's camouflage paint, and you'll be putting it on parts of your body the ghillie suit won't cover, such as your face, neck, and hands. You will then inspect and be inspected by your fellow candidates. You're now made up and ready to go to the dance, but don't get it twisted, you're not going to a ball or a beauty pageant. You'll instead be attending a special event called the ghillie wash, and this is no gentle bath. You'll have to move through mud and sand in addition to water. Sometimes you'll be buried up to your head in these conditions. You'll need to keep yourself concealed and show that your ghillie suit can survive and adapt to the tough conditions on the battlefield. You'll also need to demonstrate your strength. Snipers are trained to work in teams of 2. The spotter and the shooter. The US military takes the notion of not leaving a man behind seriously. Students will need to drag and carry one another through dire circumstances, simulating the ability to get a wounded or incapacitated comrade safely out of the danger zone. Although concealment is everything for a sniper, they get wounded more often than one would think. Snipers must be prepared to evacuate and not leave their comrades to the enemy's mercy. The ghillie suit is central to the art of fieldcraft, and fieldcraft is one of the dominant parts of the Army's sniper school. Fieldcraft involves movement over distances in open field while remaining concealed. Snipers must get into good firing positions while not giving themselves away. Much of the sniper course puts its candidates to the test in fieldcraft. If you make it this far, you'll need to stalk targets in the field without being seen. You'll need to learn how to infiltrate hostile environments to get into position and take your shot. Just as importantly, snipers will need to learn how to exfiltrate these hostile environments, which will be on alert as soon as you start shooting, and make it back to safer ground. Exfiltration is critical for a sniper. Snipers have historically been treated horrifically if taken prisoner. Since they inspire such fear and are such a threat to enemy commanders, they are given little quarter. One woman fighting as a sharpshooter in Ukraine, a role in which women have distinguished themselves, remarked that all snipers should be prepared to blow themselves up with a grenade if capture seems imminent. Good fieldcraft is about preventing you from getting to that point. Naturally, this part of the sniper school requires extreme discipline. Candidates will often need to deal with the Georgia heat and humidity and put up with insects crawling over or buzzing around them, all while dodging the eyes of their experienced instructors using high-powered optical equipment designed specifically to spot them. Unsurprisingly, this part of the course has a high attrition rate, as discipline will inevitably begin to break under such tough conditions. Instructors are also looking for signs of carelessness. In one example, the Army documented and released to the public a sniper candidate that had been crawling under vegetation for what seemed like hours. He needed to get to a range of a few hundred meters from his intended target to take the shot, and he did get to that range. However, he made a mistake by failing to consider the concealment of his weapon. The vegetation did not adequately hide the barrel of his rifle, and the sun glistened off it. The instructors spotted this immediately, and he was disqualified from the exercise. All of that work in grueling conditions for nothing. This type of failure after so much spent energy is one of only a few ways that human patience and discipline is put to the limit in the sniper course. But if you can't take such tough setbacks, you're not cut out for being one of the world's elite shots. But fieldcraft is more about getting into place for the perfect shot. There are other reasons why you'll need to remain concealed if you want to be a successful sniper candidate. Snipers are not only tasked with shooting high-value targets, they're also scouts who are required to collect and report information on the battlefield. The coursework at Fort Moore also involves teaching candidates how to do reconnaissance. This, and being able to distinguish when and where they should shoot, is why observation techniques are just as important for snipers as being expert marksmen. To be a sniper, you'll need to learn how to do this while ensuring that your cover is not blown. Snipers will learn range estimation as part of these functions too, so be prepared to try and distinguish different objects at varying distances. If you can make it through fieldcraft and observation, communication is your next task. Snipers need to learn how to talk with their spotters and learn how to take on both roles. This is why students are eventually paired up as units of 2. They take turns alternating between sniper and spotter roles. These teams must train together in attacking targets and also learning how to defend themselves. These teams must communicate closely if they want to succeed at getting the dope, data on previous engagements, that is. Since every sniper shot is the product of a unique environment, the dope records things like weather conditions, distance, ballistic information, and other items of interest. The data from each engagement is used to inform snipers and their officers about future engagements. Once on the range, you will fire between 80 and 120 rounds per day at targets ranging between 300 and 800 meters. You will also be working with a variety of weapons in the military, starting with the M4 with basic iron sights. Other weapons include the M110 semi-automatic sniper system, the M2010 bolt-action enhanced sniper rifle, and even the 50 caliber M107 Barrett. To be a sniper, you must be able to demonstrate expertise with all of these weapons, because each one might be required to fulfill a specific mission. Army snipers are expected to progress from being qualified marksmen, which involves shooting at least 23 targets out of 40, to being considered experts, where they can hit 36 out of those 40. Once you begin to hone your daytime shooting, the sniper course becomes much more psychologically difficult, even by its standards. The increased pressure involves shooting at night and in other settings with limited visibility. Time limits are also imposed on these exercises. Snipers and spotters must hit 5 targets in only 7 minutes to pass this part of the course. If you manage to get through these trials, other challenges are waiting for you. You and your teammate will need to do a lot more on your own now with minimal guidance from your instructors. Sniper candidates are expected to hit targets at unknown distances, and these targets might be moving. Snipers will need to successfully lead those moving targets, firing in a way that anticipates their movements, so the target goes to where the round will be. You'll need to do this while still accounting for ballistic and environmental factors. The course becomes even more demanding from here. In the real world, it's not only targets that might be moving, you might be moving too. Assuming you make it this far, you'll need to hit targets from an unstable platform. You'll also add another weapon to your arsenal, a pistol. Although you likely won't be using your sidearm in most circumstances, it might still be required in some environments for self-defense. From the time the sniper course at Fort Moore was established, candidates would have been using the M9 Beretta. But since 2017, this pistol has been steadily phased out. The Sig Sauer M17 and its shorter-length M18 version have since become the standard sidearms for the US military, so today's snipers will most likely be training with this weapon. In the final phase of the course, you as a sniper candidate will be expected to plan and complete a mission once you receive an operational order. This is known as the employment phase. If you can make it this far, you'll face your final boss, a time-limited road march for a last shot. You'll have 1 target and only 2 bullets. You'll need to calculate all of the factors required to get into position and successfully make that shot. The highest scorer will receive the title of Top Gun and graduate first in the class. Throughout the courses, the snipers will need to learn how to use their weapons and skills in all environments, whether in urban warfare or out in the countryside. But successful completion of all the tasks doesn't necessarily guarantee you'll be accepted, even now. To graduate, you will have needed to get high scores in observation, range estimation, stalking, concealment, camouflage in the field, target selection, and accuracy in shooting. Maybe unsurprisingly, a lot of people that join the sniper course won't make it through. In one class that the Army documented in 2017, only 4 of 46 candidates earned the title of sniper. However, there are at least a few comforts. Food is delivered to the range, so you likely won't get too hungry as you're going through these trials. Candidates are also not deprived of sleep unless this is required for training, particularly during nighttime drills. When it comes to passing the sniper course, mentality is the most important thing. Staff Sergeant Brian Moran, one of the 11 instructors of that 2017 course, said, "Most of the students who had dropped from the sniper course have failed because of their lack of discipline." For a while, only men had been allowed to attend the school at Fort Moore and become US Army snipers because it was so physically demanding. But in 2015, the US military opened all combat roles to women, provided they could pass the requirements. For the sniper course, the first such moment came in November 2021, when an unidentified woman who had enlisted in the Montana National Guard the previous December passed the trials at Fort Moore. In December 2023, Sergeant Maciel Hay, who enlisted with the 173rd Airborne Brigade in Europe, became the first active-duty woman to graduate from the sniper school. Hay said that growing up she'd been called sniper because she could find things really fast, similar to how a sniper does target detection. Because of her training at Fort Moore, she'll now be required to use that natural talent. Snipers have come a long way from their origins in the 18th century. Even during that age of massed lines of infantry bearing smoothbore muskets, they began to demonstrate what the future would look like. In 1775, the state of Virginia assigned command of a small unit of riflemen to Daniel Morgan, a sharpshooter who had experience protecting frontier settlements from raids during the French and Indian War. In 1776, George Washington recommended him for promotion, and he was awarded command of the unit that became known as Morgan's Riflemen the following year. At the second part of the Battle of Saratoga, called Bemis Heights, one of Morgan's snipers, reputedly Timothy Murphy, shot a British officer. This was Brigadier General Simon Fraser, one of Britain's commanders that day. His death caused chaos in the British ranks and helped lead to an American victory. This victory convinced foreign powers to recognize the United States. France was the first such nation, and the alliance between the two countries eventually led to Britain's recognition of the United States as an independent nation. But only months earlier, another officer, this time American, came into a sniper's sight. The British sharpshooter was Patrick Ferguson, who invented a breech-loading rifle specialized for the purpose. Ferguson reported that his target had impressive height and bearing. Since the target was only 100 yards away, it should have been an easy shot for Ferguson, who was recognized as one of the best marksmen in the British Army. However, he decided it would be too dishonorable to shoot a fellow officer in such an unchivalrous way and refused to take the shot. Reportedly, that officer was George Washington himself. These two incidents demonstrate the power in a sniper's head. It's still the same today, and the US Army's sniper school is designed to pass that power on with training methods to create marksmen of a caliber that Morgan or Ferguson probably wouldn't be able to dream about. What do you think about the US Army's sniper course? Do you think you would have what it takes to make it through? Don't forget to let us know in the comments. Also, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more military analysis from military experts. Now, go and check out why snipers avoid headshots in war, or click this other video instead.